We are back, a new week. One of my favorite travelers, incredible expert in loyalty programs and wonderful perspective. Welcome, Richard Kerr of The Points Guy.
Pleasure being here. I've been watching these interviews during the quarantine time, and as a guy who sets these up, man, I got to give you props. It's amazing that you have somebody every single day doing these and providing entertainment. So props to you, Stefan. It's awesome, and absolutely my pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. I once read an article, you can never flatter anyone too much, so we can just keep flattering each other and enjoy the whole hour. But you mentioned quarantine, and you have a Navy background. Your longest stretch on a submarine was 120 days deployed. So for those that feel like they've been cooped up, talk about how you keep a routine, how you make it work. You've got kids at home during this process, so you've got that perspective as well.
Yeah, a lot of people, buddies, friends, family say, "Oh, you've been, on multiple submarine deployments, so this is nothing to you." And what you just said is, this is a kicker. I didn't have a 3 and a 5-year-old on the submarine with me, and it's been, quite a challenge. It's been amazing to spend this much time with them, as I do like to travel, and we travel together, and we've gotten a lot of great projects done. But when you're on a submarine, you're working. You actually work an 18-hour day. We still have a 24-hour clock, but you divide the day into 3 6-hour sections, and you work 6 hours. Stand watch for 6 hours, and then you're supposed to sleep for 6 hours, which of course never works out. And once you get on that cycle, once you're doing a mission, once you're standing watch, once you're doing work, the time really just starts to fly by. And also you don't have a son to remind you whether you're supposed to be tired or not. So very distinct differences between quarantine at home and deployment on a submarine. But I got a lot of stories. We'll have to have a few beers to share those over for those days.
And I was sharing with you that a friend of mine was talking about how she's working hard during this time, and there's streaming entertainment, safe home, family around, all of that seems very lucky. But then what she's struggling with is that there's no end point where she can say, this is the reward, this is the trip I get to take. All of that is uncertain, and it's that monotony of not knowing what the end is. So, any advice for her on how to structure and think about the task without the goal?
Yeah, you got to create mini goals for yourself, is what I've tried to do here. Yeah, again, military, you have a mission, you have a set of procedures to get there. You're working as a team, and even though that finish line may get moved several times, you're still going to eventually accomplish that mission, hopefully, and have satisfaction. So not having that right now, and even potentially thinking that we're going to get to a finish line maybe in a few weeks or months, and then having it all start over again makes it difficult. So my advice is always set yourself mini goals. What did you do today that's productive and makes you feel good? What projects around the house do you have going on that you can look at and achieve? I love doing manual labor right now out in the house or out in the yard. It's away from your computer screen. It's hard work. It's instant gratification and a goal. So when you see a really crappy area of your yard that you work all Saturday and getting hot and sweaty and teaching the kids about hard work, and then at the end of the day you got a nice looking garden or area like we've had, it's good. It's a good goal. It's a great morale booster and takes your mind off the big picture. So set yourself many goals that you can accomplish and do some manual labor too. It's really good for you.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice of physically touching something other than a keyboard and
The struggle is real. These bags under my eyes are I call them Zoom bags. I can't do many more Zoom calls.
And I don't make it much farther than this in any conversation with anybody that has served in any sense with the U.S. military or allies without mentioning Diego Garcia and Can You Get Me There? So.
Yeah, I've tried. I'm hooked on far-flung destinations. I have a huge map on my wall here, and I got my recliner line next to it. And typically, I find myself sitting in this recliner looking at all of the small islands off of New Zealand or South America or off Antarctica I've never heard of, going straight to the Wikipedia article for that and saying, is this cool? Can I get there? What can I do? I'm hooked. And Diego Garcia, always one of them. Stationed in Japan, had aircraft mechanics go to Diego Garcia all the time to fix the planes. I did my best social engineering, my best military engineering, my best. I'm not really a guy to suck up, but I sure did suck up a lot hard to try and get on a flight down there to Diego Garcia, because I knew once my time in Japan was over, my likelihood of ever getting to go there was very low, and I just didn't make it. And to know that there are places on Earth, that we cannot get to, that we physically or legally cannot get to, drives me insane. And I just don't like that. So I want to see all of this planet in all of my years, and knowing that Diego Garcia is probably a place I'm never going to get to see, it really irritates me. If I can say that.
And one you did make it to is Iwo Jima.
Iwo Jima was amazing. It's actually, so I lived on an air base in Japan. I was a logistics officer. My job was to make sure that the aircraft maintenance organization that I worked for had all of the parts and pieces to fix jets and helicopters and planes. And Iwo Jima's aircraft carrier practice landing strip that set up the runway there, just like the carrier. And before planes go and deploy on the carrier, they have to do carrier qualifications on Iwo Jima. And I was able to talk my way through a buddy onto one of their exercises because, again, I knew once my time in Japan is over, the likelihood of me ever getting to go back to Iwo Jima, it's either going to be really expensive or it's not going to be able to happen. So being able to go there, see the history, which is still in full display of Invasion Beach and of all the bunkers and of all the machinery there. And it's like I shared last time, I keep a sand of Invasion Beach from Iwo Jima here on my whatever you want to call this. I feel like every old military guy has like a case of military stuff, but I love this thing, and to be able to get to stand there unmatched. I know you went on a tour, and is really anything like standing and looking at Invasion Beach and thinking about all the people that lost their lives there, and you're standing there looking at this history. It's incredible. It's why we travel.
Yeah, I went for the 70th anniversary commemoration, and those that are interested, it does run annually. This year in early March, they did, as I understand, have the trip before travel started shutting down. It's you book through an operator called Military Historical Tours, and I've put down deposits again for Wake and Midway. So Wake is pushed, not virus related, but due to eradication on Midway, that trip is pushed to September of 2021. And I don't think one is run for tourists in over a decade. And then Wake has been similar. I was booked 4 or 5 years ago, and it was canceled. And that's going to be try to do for December 2021. And as I understand, it's not likely that there would be any veterans alive that would still be able to make the trip for those commemorations, because when those battles happened, it was generally more senior soldiers that were already in the service. The Iwo Jima commemorations for this year was the 75th. They still had several veterans who were able to go. For mine, it was over 40 veterans that made the trip. It was the biggest they had ever done, and it was an incredible experience. Seeing these stories, seeing the island in any circumstance would be incredible. But
I would love to go to Midway. That's one of my favorite movies. Not the new one, the old Midway with Heston playing. And ever since that movie, I've been fascinated with Midway. Read about it all the time, and then you go into some of these other islands. I have Navy intrigued me is family history. I have a great uncle that was killed in the Battle of Leyte Gulf and got the Navy Cross as an ensign. So when I outlived him and was promoted to lieutenant junior grade, and recognizing that he had died, these specific islands and his story in particular, which is fascinating. He's got a book written about it. I just want to go. I want to go check it out. I want to go see what he saw, and then see these places that most humans don't know about, don't learn lessons from. Just fascinating. That's literally why we do these things and go to these places. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and for those that are looking for the alternate, you can also volunteer to count birds for 6 months of the year on Midway, and it's incredibly competitive.
I bet.
And they also have a 3-week one for a few slots each year, but it's right over Christmas and New Year's, so it's a tough 3 weeks for many people to be away. It's an expensive trip. You have to fund your own costs. And it's as I understand it, the flight is according to government prices, so it's not like a Southwest Airlines flight that you're going to be paying for. But
no, it's just like there's repatriation flights for the American citizens that got stuck overseas right when the COVID-19 started. Those are not cheap prices. Those are government rates, and you're going to be paying quite a bit of money.
Yeah. So maybe you'll be on the flight. I know a lot of us in the group have already put down our deposits in the hope that this trip both of the trips are able to operate next year. It's yeah, last time with Wake, it was a week before it was mysteriously canceled, and the only clues were people in Los Angeles were seeing what ICBMs heading towards the direction of Kwajalein or something being launched off the LA coast or the reverse. I forget all the details, but nothing was ever officially explained.
Yeah, those daggum submariners out there, they tell them what they're doing.
We've got a question here. Have you been to Morocco or Tunisia?
Had Morocco booked twice. Was really excited about it. Royal Air Morocco used to be a great sweet spot in Etihad award chart. Really easy to book business class from DC or New York over to Casablanca for not very many miles at all. But I can't remember why now. I had it booked 2 years ago for my anniversary and haven't gone. I continue to hear wonderful things about it. Both Marrakesh and Casablanca, and then getting out into the countryside from Marrakesh, some awesome day trips and some of that scenery. So would love to go. Really easy destination to book on points and miles, which is what I do.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So Royal Air Morocco, now part of One World, some new options have opened up. So explain that concept of being an alliance airline and what are the options, because a lot of us in the group have for years bought some very expensive regional cash tickets on Royal Air Morocco to get around West Africa.
Yeah, so for years there's been two programs that you can book Royal Air Morocco flights with. That was Etihad. They were not part of an official alliance, which Etihad still isn't. They just have a very hodgepodge group of airline partners. But if you have Etihad Airways, frequent flyer miles, you can book a partner operated flight. In this case, Royal Air Morocco from used to be just New York, and now they operate I think 3 times a week from DC. Royal Air Morocco, I think April 1st, joined the One World Alliance with American Airlines. So if you have American Airlines miles, British Airways Avios, Iberia Avios, you can Qantas points, you can book Royal Air Morocco flights, and they're showing up online on the award search engine. So lots of ways to book those flights. And American Airlines just put Morocco as part of Europe instead of North Africa. So it's a little bit cheaper now to fly Royal Air Morocco using American Airlines miles, but still Etihad still the cheapest if you want to fly. And by all accounts, economy not such a great flight, but business class on the new Dreamliner, perfectly great way to cross the Atlantic and get to Africa.
And the little comment you made about Morocco being part of Europe for the AA award chart prices, what, for those less familiar, why is that significant, and what are these AA routing rules about transiting regions?
Yeah, there's been a few peculiar times when programs make cities farther apart than they physically are. In British Airways case, with like Dublin and Boston, so they can make it cost more Avios. And then
they moved Boston like 13 miles west.
It's like 8 miles further, so it's in the next award chart. They just do the things to make the financial side of loyalty programs make sense. But basically, American is really particular about how you can route to specific destinations. So on one award without having to pay 2 different prices. So the fact that Morocco is in Europe now, you can book everything on one award if you want to route through Europe to get down to Casablanca or Marrakesh instead of having to pay 2 awards. So that's kind of the advantage there with American doing that.
And so this would then allow you to go from, say, North or South America to Europe via Morocco and not get penalized. It would be the same as if it, say, were a nonstop. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think Royal Air Morocco flies to Sao Paulo. They either fly to Sao Paulo or Rio. I think it's Sao Paulo. So you can fly there from, for the price of Europe when you're actually going to North Africa.
And so for those of us that are trying to use Royal Air Morocco for its African network, this could be a big penalty using AA miles, right?
You're now going to have to pay for 2 awards. Yeah, there's no that stuff. The only way to do it is, to actually go via Doha, but then you have to stay on Qatar. You can't use Royal Air Morocco's African network in that case. So a little funky that American does that. And I think we'll continue to see things get funkier and funkier as we go into the next few years.
So what would be the alternate program then? I think British Airways we're having pretty heavy surcharges on the RAM awards, I think. So but the miles price might be fairly low. So if you're going, say, from any of the West African network destinations to Morocco, what would be your recommended program to look at?
Still Etihad. Etihad's award chart caps out at a reasonable amount, so it doesn't matter how much further you want to fly on Royal Air Morocco's either domestic or Africa network. You're not going to pay any more miles. So
Okay.
I think still Etihad is still the best program to use if you want to do Royal Air Morocco and then use their African network.
And what's the booking process like these days for Etihad?
It's not bad. You give them a call. They have an amazing call center in Serbia now with really well-trained agents, nothing like it was in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And they will manually query Royal Air Morocco for space. It usually comes back instantly, and they'll quote it right up. And it's less than a 15-minute process the last few times that I've called. And if they tell you that they will call you back, the Serbian call center for Etihad will actually call you back, and they'll tell you it's going to say a Serbian number. Give me 10 minutes to see if there's space or to see if I can manually query it, and they will call you back. So a much better process when I first started doing Etihad Partner Award bookings.
And for those that arch an eyebrow at the mention of Serbia, that's not usually the call center that you're imagining, but Etihad has a fairly deep connection with Serbia.
Yeah. I was supposed to go to Serbia on Air Serbia, booked with Etihad miles. I think Etihad's majority owner now of Air Serbia. Right again when COVID-19 started, I had an amazing trip. I've been trying to go to the Eastern Bloc for years now, and had the great nonstop from Atlanta to Istanbul on the brand new 7879, booked for 33,800 Turkish miles thanks to their promo in business. Staying there for a few days and hopping up to Belgrade. I was really excited about it. Yeah.
So the time I was in the Crown Plaza Belgrade, which has a giant lobby. I mean, it's like a convention center style one, but lots of glass and light. And there were several thousand of the most beautiful chain smoking people I've ever seen in my life. And it turned out to be open casting for flight attendant jobs at Etihad, as you said, with their connection.
They do lots of Serbian flight attendant. When I lived in Japan, I used to have to go to the Middle East for a lot of work for the Navy, Bahrain and Dubai all the time. And for whatever reason, the government carrier was not Emirates, but it was Etihad. So flew Etihad probably 5 or 6 times from Tokyo to Abu Dhabi and then around the Middle East, and always had the best Serbian flight crew ever. It was awesome.
And if you compare the ME3 of whichever cabins you've experienced, and they've got some of these dream planes, but also the everyday business class, if you can say it that way.
Yeah. I've just always had the best in-flight experience with Etihad. Now, I've had a few really lucky circumstances. I caught an airfare from Tokyo to the Maldives on Etihad in first class that they ended up honoring. And my son was 5 months old, and we had the onboard nanny, again, who was Serbian, but they sent him to London to actually get trained in the London nanny school. And she took care of my son for the long-haul overnight flights there and back. And they put you up in a hotel for the transit, and you have the whole limo service, and they had like a triple miles. We ended up making like 300,000 Etihad miles off this mistake fare. And you can book American flights for 25,000 miles business anywhere they fly domestically. Ended up being like just the greatest thing ever. And then to me, the Emirates cabins, depending on which ones you're flying now, and I'm not talking about the brand new ones, they're just a little narrow. They're just, kind of narrow if that's your thing. I haven't done Q suites yet. I again was supposed to do that with the, we were just talking about an Asia Miles booking I did from Doha back to Atlanta, but that was again canceled because of COVID-19. I think that's going to be pretty tough to beat, so I'm excited to try it. But right now, Etihad, and just the things I've been able to do with Etihad miles, compared to Emirates miles and what used to be their massive fuel surcharges until a few days ago, I guess. I've just gotten tremendous value out of the Etihad program and always loved my long haul flights with them.
So the fuel surcharge concept, for those not familiar, you've got frequent flyer programs that can charge all different miles, and miles might be worded differently, but then they also, in addition to the actual regulatory taxes, some airlines just add these junk fees, they're often called. And so you alluded to Emirates dropped a lot of these by a significant amount for using Skyward's miles on their awards. Has that carried through to any of their partners that have been passing these on?
Only Asia miles so far. First class, business class, fuel surcharges on Cathay Pacific are down to $60 right now, and they used to be a couple $100. But the one side I go to every day, especially when oil became negative per barrel a few weeks ago, wait for that British Airways fuel surcharges to drop, and that hasn't happened, not 1 cent. It's still just as expensive to fly on Avios. Same with Qantas; they haven't dropped fuel surcharges either. So we saw Emirates do it, although in conjunction, Emirates pretty much erased their Save Reward space, so not really a net win there. But Asian miles, lots of availability with Asian miles right now, and then again, fuel surcharges 30-20% of what they were.
And then any of Emirates partners, let's say I wanted to use Alaska miles to book an Emirates award, would I see a difference showing up in the cash surcharges, or
they didn't really pass them on too much, specifically with Alaska. It wasn't ever an issue. The issue, of course, is that they just want hundreds of thousands of miles now to fly premium cabin. But I haven't looked to see, because it wasn't ever really a concern in the first place.
Yeah, never made it past hearing what the crazy to me prices are. Is it Japan Airlines that has had decent values on Emirates as a partner? I'm trying to think.
They did, and I haven't checked to see if JAL has dropped those surcharges as well, and Korean as well. But again, the surcharges there always were just significant. So good research project actually for me to go check out this week. I should do that, because if you get your hands on some Japan Airlines miles courtesy of Marriott, if you haven't looked at that program, it's tedious. The website's not easy to use, but the value there is just tremendous. So if you want to go see far-flung places with One World partners or with Emirates or some other partners, JAL has a wonderful loyalty program to look at and book some award tickets with.
And do they still have a lot of those partner-specific passes? Because they would have like this LATAM pass, and they would have this Iberia pass, or the Bangkok Airways pass, where you could book several destinations on one award, and they had all these charts of what was possible and all of this. So
they have these promos that are, Bangkok Airways was a promo that they had, and every time the expiration date came up, they would re-extend it. So two promo kind of things you need to be aware of. One, Japan Airlines, you need to know how to find the promo pages, and you're going to find these passes and these deals that Stefan is talking about. And then the same for Turkish Miles and Smiles, which is how I booked business class for 33,800 miles. They both have promo pages, and I have them bookmarked because they're just, sometimes you read them and you're like, hold on, what? They're really only that many miles? And you're not going to read about it on the Points Guy. I don't tell people about these because they're just such great deals. So only here for every passport stamp. Make sure you check out the JAL and the Miles and Smiles promo pages all the time, because there's some just smoking deals that hide there.
Yeah, and it is. I think there was a year or two where I bookmarked the Japan Airlines pages before I finally. And it's what, a 36 months forced expiration for their miles?
Yes, it is. But you can just do so many cool things with their miles, including, once you qualify for top tier One World status, you can pay a few thousand miles and just keep it keep it every single year, so that you get, the domestic lounge access, the Qantas access. If you're into the status hunting game, it's really just an intriguing program. And then they're partners with Air France, who of course is in the Sky Team. You fly round trip business class from the U.S. to France for 63,000 JAL miles and not many fuel surcharges. Add in some stopover. I mean, just wild things. So just go, if you're a points and miles nerd, or even if you're not, go check out the JAL program. You're gonna need a whole bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey or whatever your drink of choice is to sit there and figure it out. But in the end, it's going to be worth it, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, even I'd say a lot of airlines have complication with their partners. Japan Airlines has incredible complication with its own flights. So this is offer, this promo, this is this.
Navigating Japanese websites is an art form that just takes time. That to be able to read how much information they can stick in English on a single web page.
Speak about, I mean, you were serving you were on a base, but you did live in Tokyo for several years. So talk about, I've been an expat, but not military. So talk about being an expat in the military.
Yeah, the first year and a half, we actually lived downtown. When you get there, you have the choice. I want to live on base, and a lot of people with families, because the school's there, it's just a lot easier with kids to live on base. But we went in gung ho, let's let's get out in town. And we lived in a traditional Japanese house. It was 2 blocks from a train station. We only had 1 car. My wife kept it. I rode my bike to base every day. I rode the train everywhere. My son was born there, and we brought him home to the traditional Japanese house. He was born in October. No central heating, air conditioning. You got these little window units, no insulation. And the first night we actually almost froze him because we woke up and he had unswaddled himself, and it was 50 degrees in the house. And I loved it. I loved every single thing about it. People were curious about what we were doing out in the neighborhood. Everything is so dense in Japan that once you go 3 miles, you might as well be and you are in a different city. You can't, you just know a place where we live that you didn't expect to see foreigners. Eventually they would figure out that, he's probably one of those Navy guys. But we gave learning Japanese our best go. My wife got really good at reading at it. I got decent enough at speaking that I could get myself in trouble. So we were the perfect tag team thing where she would read and then I would speak. And, just looking like a guy like me who could turn around and start whipping out some Japanese would always get some great reactions. It was everything it was meant for. Japan is a wonderful, wonderful country. There's an interesting subculture there and some things you figure out, just like every country that's, not too impressive, but overall, you felt safe. I would love to raise a family in Japan, not have to worry about a lot of things we have to worry about here in the States. It's so easy to get around. There's so much to see. And I loved every single minute about it. My wife and I talk about it all the time. We have all kinds of, again, I got Japanese souvenirs here. We have some amazing furniture that we picked up, and great memories of my son. It wasn't planned to have a son in Japan. We had him, our first kid. The in-laws weren't over there for the birth, and the first 2 weeks in a foreign country, out in town in a neighborhood, not having a Walmart or a Target to run to, but having Japanese stores we just had to figure it out. And looking back on, having to figure out how to be a parent in a foreign country, a really foreign country, not an Anglo, but as foreign as you could get, ended up just being a wonderful experience. And we look back and have just such great memories, and I miss it all the time.
Oh, it's incredible. And I think the JNTO would be happy to license this clip as their new back to travel campaign. And that's great to hear, because when I went to Okinawa, I didn't get the feeling that any of the American soldiers were anywhere at all taking part of the local culture. And then of course there's a lot more tensions there about their behavior at times. So.
Yeah, I had a really interesting job. I had people that worked for me. I mentioned Diego Garcia. I had people work for me in Okinawa and Singapore. Spent a lot of time in Korea. Spent almost 3 months in Korea. In the Arkansas equivalent of Korea, just middle of nowhere. Again, a guy like me walking around where we were in Korea always. Mm-hmm. What is that guy doing here? Because there was no military base around. It was a private Korean aerospace company where we worked at. And just getting into those situations. It's why I love to travel. It's off the beaten path. I love seeing the tourist stuff. I love seeing the things that you see everywhere. But going and having those authentic experiences and just figuring it out, right? Go and figure it out. Even when you stick out like the biggest sore thumb. And I'm not a small guy. That dude is not from here. That's what a majority of places I go. He is not one of us. And then figuring out how not to come off like a traditional American, how to try and partake in the customs and at least give it a go, how to try and speak the language even if you butcher it. I just found always makes for these wonderful stories, and I just love it so much.
I have a feeling those 3 months in Korea, every night was some form of, let's see how much this big American can drink.
Again, I have stories, and if you ever buy me a delicious Coors Light, I will tell you some stories about Japan and Korea and other places. But yeah, I did. Okay, so one Japanese story that actually took place here in America is how I got a standing ovation on a Holiday Inn Express shuttle. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a true story. I landed at LAX one time at midnight. I don't remember where I was coming from. I went through customs and immigration. I had an 8-hour layover, so just enough time to drop some IHG points and get a bed at the Holiday Inn Express or whatever by the airport. You get out, and the worst thing about staying at a hotel airport waiting on the shuttle is you're waiting an hour, and you only have a 7-hour layover. Now you're waiting an hour for the shuttle that you've wasted, and you're like, I should have just slept in the airport. So I walk out, and there's the shuttle. Sprint on the shuttle. I'm like, oh, hallelujah, this never happens. The shuttle's never here. And I turn around, and there are about 30 really elder Japanese women. I see their ANA baggage tags, and I hear them talking in Japanese. And it's me and the 30 elder Japanese ladies. And I turned around, and in my Japanese, which was decent at the time, I introduced myself, said, "Welcome to the United States. Pleasure to have you here. My name is Richard. Welcome." And I'm telling you, so man, imagine being an old, the tour groups that they go on, they're all really elder, and this big white dude gets on, turns around, just speaks Japanese to them, and they're all like, "America's the greatest country in the world. They speak Japanese." We talk about it on like the 10-minute ride to the Holiday Inn Express. And when I left that shuttle, they all stood up and gave me a standing ovation for welcome. So at midnight at the LAX Holiday Inn Express, I got a standing ovation on the airport shuttle because I whipped out some Japanese. I was just like, this is why we do it. It's just one of my favorite stories to do.
Fantastic, and it is something to think about for somebody that wants to learn a language, a foreign language. For them is to picking a place where there'll be a lot of locals that are encouraging and appreciative, and I felt that way in China too, where it's just so outsized the appreciation and patience people have for a foreigner making some effort, however poorly, to speak the language, and that's certainly not something that a visitor to the United States would normally encounter. So I feel bad about that. But in terms of picking a place to go, it is incredibly encouraging to have that feedback and opportunity.
Sadly, 4 years later, it is all gone.
I think once you start hearing the subway announcements, that's when you
I can pick this up.
at least get your Tokyo subway voice back. I think every foreigner picks up a little bit of that.
Yep.
Yeah, I won't do that for everybody, but I would say actually for Japanese, I mean, it can seem such a challenging language for many, but you could at least learn to spell out the hiragana and katakana without an incredible amount of effort, and that can get you at least to reading a bit and vocalizing some things, and starting to get the kanji could be, that's a big project, but that's a small part of what everything is. So you can start to piece together elements that doesn't require years and years of study before you can use it. And
a couple sets of flashcards for hiragana and katakana, and you're good to go. I mean, that's really all it takes. So if I can do it, and I do, that side of my brain is not good. I was not good at language. It's just brute force, beat it in, do flashcards. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm sure of that.
I find it's the grammar for Japanese and Korean. It's what subject, object, verb that I think is the word order that takes a bit of a different of a perception shift. But, plus also the language is spoken so differently between men and women. If someone who teaches you is the opposite gender, everybody's going to know it.
But the problem with Japanese is, there's no hard R sound. So Kerr, my name was Ka.
Oh, yeah.
Ka. So, and then son, of course, like everybody knows, of course. So unfortunately, Ka-san is also mommy in Japanese. So my office, it's a joint American Japanese Air Base, and my office was actually about 80% Japanese, and they introduced me as Ka-san, and I knew immediately from day one, hour one, that something was up and that this wasn't good. So all of them, my beloved Japanese nationals, got a huge kick for 3 years out of calling me mom.
It probably never stopped being funny.
It never stopped being funny for them, and it's just, oh well. It was good.
Tim is asking about frequent flyer programs at risk. So I saw you put up a tweet today about Virgin Atlantic. Let's start there, and then also he's asking about Avianca, perhaps Korean, Asiana. Take your grab bag. Yeah.
Too many to list here. Yeah, I think there's also Airplane in the mix, but it seems like they've dug themselves out of it a little bit. Right now Virgin Atlantic is number one of concern. It's been such a good deal for so long, and then there were announcements well over a year now that all of the Virgin, I don't know what you call them, Steph, like conglomerates, all of the Virgin entities were going to be brought underneath a single Virgin loyalty program. Land tours, the hot air balloon stuff, Galactic, trains, flights, Virgin Australia.
When somebody like you hears that, it sounds like, oh, that's going to be horrible.
It's going to be revenue.
That kind of concept is never going to be good for maximizers.
It's going to be revenue based. There's no way that you can take a currency and try and pay for a cruise in for a train and a flight and not be straight revenue based. In my opinion, I mean, maybe they can. So I knew these deals were going to end, and I was always afraid that we were going to wake up one day and it was just going to be gone. It seems like maybe that's the case now. Virgin Atlantic's not even flying. They're retiring their aircraft. Supposed to be flying August 1st. It's still 2 months away. So Richard Branson looking to sell the airline. Still operating some gas guzzlers, huge engine problems. All the engines actually coming here to Atlanta to get overhauled in Delta's new engine shop. It's just not looking very good right now. And I hope it's something temporary.
Rolls-Royce stuff? Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, having to redo all those. Took a tour of the engine shop here. They just opened Atlanta. It's magnificent, and like literally rows of the Rolls-Royce Dreamliner Virgin Atlantic engines lined up waiting to undergo overhaul, which is great business for Delta actually. Yeah, that's number one right now. Avianca, I don't think they're going anywhere. Again, for everybody, if you follow this, bankruptcy does not mean ceasing to exist. Majority of the time when it comes to airlines, especially established national carriers, it just means restructuring of debt, and they continue to fly, and then your miles are still worthwhile. We thought for sure South African Airways was going to be gone, and unbelievably, it looks like they've gotten bailed out again. So I think life miles are still safe. Again, that's a separate program anyways. It's kind of hard for it to maintain value when you don't have an airline associated with it anymore, but there are a couple examples where that has occurred successfully.
Like the travel hackers of Star Alliance, because they sell their miles to on other airlines availability.
Yeah, and they win the Freddie Ford every year. I mean, it's like amazing what they've done for that. So yeah, I would love to see how the financials work for life miles, but I don't think it's any immediate risk. I don't see anything that you need to like burn right now outside of Virgin Atlantic, but you can't even do that because the website is down. You call the phone agents, they can't book anything. So hopefully that gets resolved relatively soon. American carriers, nobody's going anywhere. I don't think, unless something absolutely crazy happens. There's a lot of people writing in and asking, do I need to go burn all my American miles right now? No, you don't. American Advantage is worth 10 times what the American Airlines itself is worth. So they're going to, protect that value as much as they can. So nobody rushing anything right now is my short answer to that.
All right. And hotel programs, I think they're probably of the not going anywhere, but what are some of the opportunities out there? We've seen, I think the hotels have been a little more aggressive on non-travel earn than some of the airlines, but then the credit card companies are getting in. There's this whole, it's like everybody wants to get your grocery spend is probably where it comes down to.
Yeah, grocery and dining spend right now, you're certainly plenty of opportunity. I think it's just still too early. Hotels haven't been as aggressive as airlines in creating the perception of safety when it comes to enticing guests to come back. Most of the hotels have been shut down actually until today is a big opening day for a lot of hotels. I haven't seen too many promos out there yet to try and encourage guests to get back. I think the hotels understand that perception of safety is going to be the only thing that's going to get people to come and stay again, not offering double points or anything. No, those will come, I believe. But for right now, the opportunities all lie in co-branded card spend, which is, Hyatt's made it easier to get status. You get, I think, 3 nights instead of 2 for every $5,000 you spend. Everybody's offering bonus points on credit cards. On grocery and dining spend. So for right now, use the right credit card and get as many points as you can. The good news is, Hyatt's held off on award category changes and introducing off-peak and peak redemptions, whereas Marriott has not. No surprise there as far as comparing those two programs. But nothing really well. It's really an interesting question or discussion about the status extension stuff that both hotels and airlines have done. I don't particularly agree with it from a business standpoint. What they've done, in my opinion, is they de-incentivize their most loyal customers to stay with them anymore. So I'm a huge Hyatt guy. I love staying at a Hyatt. And I now have Hyatt top tier status through February of 2022. What does that mean for next year? That means if somebody else has a better deal or if somebody's offering something interesting next year, I'm already good with Hyatt. So I'm going to go try out this other hotel. And I think that's going to happen. Actually, the only opportunity I've seen is Omni. Omni's already come out and said, hey, stay with us twice, and we're going to give you next to top tier platinum status. And Omni has a small footprint, but if you go somewhere where an Omni is, it's a great hotel, reasonably priced, and the benefits that they're offering are great. It's a smart move because they know that these top tier or these top airline chains, as well as hotel chains, have de-incentivized their top customers to stay with them. So I think people are going to start playing off of that and really going after some of the loyal guests from the other competition. And I hope people get creative with that because that's just good for the consumer. So far, we've seen a lack of creativity in the promotions that are offered. We're probably still a little bit early, but I think it'll come, and I hope it does.
So a lack of creativity, but I think it's clear that that these program managers actually do know exactly what is awful about their programs and what is good about the programs, because they've been very fast at pushing buttons that that clearly it's like, you guys could have done this stuff all along and people would be very happy, and it wasn't that for lack of knowing. And then in a few cases I would say United is like, let's just slip every possible bad news we've been planning. Well, nobody's looking. IHG seems a little bit like that. So
Yeah.
they're not as clueless as I think we've all been assuming it's sometimes.
No, they're very very aware, and luckily I've had the chance since starting at the Points Guide in the last year to sit in a room with a lot of these folks and hear kind of their thoughts and their staff's thoughts, and they're very aware of what they're doing. And loyalty programs now are revenue drivers. Yeah, they exist to get people to stay loyal to their brand, but more importantly, they exist to get co-branded credit card deals, and they exist to drive revenue more than to try and get people to stay loyal to their brand. And that's what's become abundantly clear to me with all of these. And that's why you see the selling of miles to try and boost cash. That's why you see the devaluations to try and lower reimbursement rates to partner airlines in United's case, and capping the amount of elite qualifying points that you can earn with partners. It's all about the dollars and cents. And it's just very short-term thinking right now. Nobody's looking, and I understand it's a matter of survival, right? Things are very dire at these airlines, but look at what Air Canada did, selling the airplane miles with 115% bonus, I think, or whatever they got up to. That's not even that creative. It's just really lucrative, and they sold, the website broke like it worked.
Yeah, there was never a bigger mileage sale on the platform they used for any airline or any mileage.
And nobody else is doing that. Everybody's still in their old playbook. Like, ladies and gents, it's time to throw the playbook out and get creative and get people excited about it. At least your goal right now shouldn't be getting people on your plane. It should be staying top of mind. It should be getting out of the PR statement where you can just read the 4 PR professionals' hands that are all through it, and just talk to us like the regular people we are, and then come up with something creative to stay top of mind. That's what I would love to see right now. And people just aren't doing that yet.
Seems like, I mean, just looking at my inbox, the only airline executive that's speaking to me via video is JetBlue. What do you think about their PR efforts?
Yeah, and they're the only ones that did the status extension right. Look, they waited because what was the rush? JetBlue was 6 weeks behind everybody else because they knew, like, nobody's flying right now. It doesn't matter. We don't have to do this. We need to wait and get the data and make a smart decision. And then they did it right. Not only am I going to extend it, but now you can give it to somebody else because we know that they're de-incentivized to fly our competition. I'm going to give you Mosaic status to come and fly JetBlue, and then I'm going to talk to you like a real individual. And it worked. People are talking about JetBlue, and they're actually blocking the seats, not like American and United that are flying with full planes right now. And it's working, so it's time to sit back, we get the data in here and make smart decisions and not bow to public pressure because somebody else is a first mover advantage. It's been really interesting to watch, but applaud JetBlue for waiting as long as they did and doing it the way that they did it.
I kind of wonder with Delta that essentially for the airlines got first mover advantage, and I wonder if they did that just because they thought other airlines might be more generous than they want to be. So get out first, let their customers feel like, oh, they're doing it, and then they don't have to come back and do a round two. I guess it's like different views on economic bailouts and how many rounds you're going to do. I mean, Delta's been very quiet since they pushed all that out, and there hasn't been drips and drabs of. And I mean, I'm a Diamond member. I haven't heard a thing for some weeks other than the cleaning and safety related.
Delta, the leadership has stated, Ed Bastian has stated, promos and things are not going to get people to fly as a perception of safety, which is why they work so hard on this clean process.
Talk about the clean process. You were out at Delta headquarters and in the airport last week.
Yeah,
what did you see?
They invited us up last week. I came on Thursday. I live just 30 minutes from the Atlanta airport, and they've done a great job. I'm not just saying. I've only flown American this year. Hyatt gave me executive platinum status, which is now extended to 2022. So I'm not a Delta fanboy. I love, Delta planes are great. Their service is great. I've actually been flying American all this year, so I'm not saying this as a Delta fanboy, but the process they've created from check-in through security into the boarding and gate area, on the jet bridge, and then on the plane, everything is clean. They've gone above and beyond. They continue to. They're cleaning every single plane between every single flight, and then overnight. Every 15 days, the plane goes through a conditioning process where they're ripping out all the seat cushions. They're replacing anything that has wear and tear, dirty or not. If it looks worn, placards, flooring, carpet, seat cushions, seat belts, tray tables. The 737 I got on, which was about to leave, like they were about to board. I got there an hour early, so they didn't have this plane staged for me. The guy actually looked at his flight schedule, and he was like, "Here, this flight to Detroit's about to leave. They got the cleaning crew on. Let's go check it out." And to see the process they have, and then they are limiting the flights to 60% capacity. Like there's no trickery in their statement. They're only going to be 60% full on that flight. You're going to have some space. You're not going to be any viral photos that continue to go around with the competition. So the gate area is clean, electrostatic sprayers, the technology and the chemistry behind that's awesome. And then the cleaning crew comes on after that to wipe down every high touch point in the entire cabin, galley, and lavatory. The gate area is steam cleaned and sprayed. Everything is clean there. Everybody, you're required to have a mask at any Delta touch point, including at check-in. It really gave me the confidence that this airline is doing everything it can. This plane is like, you physically walk on the plane and your eyeball says, this is a clean plane. And then you actually look at the nooks and crannies and the places that those of us who fly routinely look at, and seat back pockets and tray tables and, the seat rails on the bottom where things are like, it's clean. Everything is clean, man. So I wouldn't have, and I don't have any hesitation flying Delta right now.
And on a quick interjection, Mike is asking about spending to reach diamond status this year, or just stay at platinum.
Well, your diamond status has already been extended, right? So
he's not. So he's presumably not. So he would have to generate it by the new credit card boost.
Yeah, going for top tier status, it's all a relative thing. With Delta, I'm good at platinum because I get speculative award booking with free cancellations. You get upgrades starting however many hours out. You get free economy comfort plus ad booking. You get great service. Somebody picks up the phone every time you call. Like, I don't really need diamond. And being diamond in Atlanta, I'm not getting upgrades anyway. Everybody's diamond. So it's not like I get anything above and beyond. So to me, platinum with Delta is amazing. That's all I need. I love it. I'm happy with it. There's no reason for me to go for diamond versus all that spending you're going to do earning probably 1x Delta miles versus, the opportunity cost of putting that somewhere else. It's a personal question. How bad do you want that diamond? What's going to get it for you? For me, the answer is no, but it could be different in this situation.
Yeah, I'm addicted to diamond, and it's irrational. But what I think is reasonably rational is echoing your point. I think that Delta Platinum is the only, I guess it's not really mid-tier anymore, the 3/4 tier status that is valuable and worthwhile. I feel like United Platinum has been devalued to uselessness, and I used to be 1K, used to be Platinum. The Platinum Pro I don't really understand for AA, but it doesn't seem to have much there. But the Delta Platinum I think is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, no, huge step ups to top tier with United and American, but Delta Platinum's it's been awesome for me. Again, before I had Executive Platinum, I was Delta Platinum, and I was as happy as could be. But, for a couple of years here in Atlanta.
In both levels, you get access to agents who will solve problems, which I think for looking at travel out in uncertainty, that's a huge help. There was a comment about the upgrade certificates. So mine were all extended, except of the 4 that were all issued the exact same date, January 31st, and were all never attached to a reservation or anything. They've all been extended to different days. So within a 2-month period, actually 2 are on the same day. One is like 2 weeks before, one is a month after. I have no idea how they got
But I imagine if you call a Delta Diamond agent, they'll probably fix it because they're empowered to fix it. So
I've not been in a hurry. Christopher Gao saying the Chisholm call center in Minnesota that usually has gone to platinums is better than the one we get as diamonds.
Yeah.
And let's see, we've also got Favorite Hyatt property? You said you're a Hyatt guy. I think it's Hyatt Place Fredericksburg for you. Or?
I did a lot of mattress running at the Hyatt Place Fredericksburg. Park Hyatt Vienna, fantastic. Really treated us well there. The bank vault, swimming pool, and the breakfast they have there is just, and the location is fantastic. If the Park Hyatt St. Kitts ever gets the beach situation, it's going to be top. The room there was amazing with your own plunge pool and the Nevis Peak Suite. If you got a family, Hyatt Regency Coconut Point down Fort Myers in Florida, all the activities that you could ever want or need. Out west, the Royal Palms Resort in Scottsdale, just a lovely. It's the Unbound Collections is kind of a boutique property, but just a really solid place to stay and explore the desert. It kind of goes on and on. And then I've been lucky enough to stay. Park Hyatt in New York has its problems, but if you're going to be in New York for a week for business, and you got access to that pool and that gym and the breakfast that you can have in your room as a globalist, and you're not in a tiny shoebox New York hotel room, I just find that it just really de-stresses the work week, and it's just been an amazing oasis in the city for me. So I've enjoyed both my stays for a week of business at the Park Hyatt in New York. Some of my favorites off the top of my head.
Jeez, I think I need to work for some of that private equity money to be having the.
Oh no, those were award stays. Don't worry, not.
Okay, yeah, I've been stuck at club quarters in Manhattan, different employers, so it's a little.
Club quarters does have a Peloton though, so you're safe there.
Okay, all right, yeah, my last stay with that company was years before the Peloton, so I've not experienced that. I know you're a fan. I know that's where you've dealt with irrational hatred from commenters for posting things online.
Trying to stay healthy when on the road, people get mad. We exist to help people travel better. It has always been my mantra. Like, I wake up in the morning to try and make good content to either entertain people, enlighten, educate, encourage, or help people travel better. And it's just amazing how angry that can make people for some reason. I just kind of the place that we're in. So yeah, I wrote an article earlier this year that said I choose hotels that have Pelotons because, look, I'm a big dude. If I didn't do a Peloton, I would be a huge dude. So staying healthy on the road is important to me. And people were really angry that I had made that decision. And I just, one more step and the people are just irrational, ignore the comment section voyage in my career.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been doing any particular exercise less than I normally do, but just because I'm not traveling, I'm down about 8 pounds during the lockdown. Just I'm eating my normal diet at home. But it's not having when I travel. I don't gorge myself, but if I'm in a place, I want to experience the food there, and it's going to be restaurant food, and it's going to have all the punch it takes. So Tim is asking about, are there any mileage sweet spots in the next year that wouldn't normally be available if not for COVID, and are you taking advantage of them?
Well, sweet spots not normally available. Overall, the trend right now is availability itself is incredible. Saver space to Hawaii on almost every program any day you want to go. You got to wait till the 14-day quarantine limit is lifted, but premium class award space that we typically don't see wide open, saver economy. Like, if you want to go somewhere right now, you can book it. There's not necessarily a sweet spot. It's just these routes have availability. Virgin Atlantic right before it dropped. Any day you wanted to fly Delta One to Europe, for 50,000 Virgin Atlantic miles, it was there. Any single day you want to book, and so there's not a single your sweet spot was there, but just the availability itself right now is fantastic. So if you're confident at all booking trips later for this year, for next year, now is the time to take advantage of this availability.
Fantastic. And a personal question I've been wondering is, does anybody at United think that any customer can understand the Mileage Plus program as they've changed it since November?
Yeah, I don't think any United reps are watching. So I'll tell you, when I sat in their office last year and they said we've made this simpler, we just kind of all looked at each other like, yeah. I mean, it's incredible, right? And you've seen the articles that we've had to spell out on the points guide to give the examples of the math required. And then once you get to the preferred versus regular partner and dividing it to get, it's just like,
And I wasn't one pay before. I mean, I've been deeply invested in the program, and I just threw my hands up and said, I'm done. I just can't. I don't hate the airline. I've got no problem. I just can't understand what I'm going to do.
They continue to do that. There was a funny tweet going around the other day that said, in 5 words or less, give us a disaster in your profession. And mine was, we made program enhancements, because like they throw these things around. We've simplified the process. We've given customers what they wanted. We've made program enhancements. And then you look at it and like, I mean, we do points and miles for a living. We have some incredibly smart people at points and miles on the points guy staff. And we get on Slack and we're like having to virtually whiteboard this out and figure it out. It's like, if we are having to do this, the average Joe consumer is like, forget it. Like, I'm not doing this. This isn't great. So, you know, they're sticking. They've said their line is simpler and they're sticking to it. And we just have to, you know, in my case, take my business elsewhere.
And then dealing with ongoing cancellation. I mean, we're past this first wave of so many trips being canceled and that. But say like our trip that was supposed to be June 10th this year for my wife's birthday to Australia. That's an Asia Miles booked award on Cathay Pacific Metal. I've been getting these Hong Kong country code calls from them saying, please decide what you're going to do. In a situation like this, I've not actually looked that deep into Asia Miles, what all my options are, but if we can generalize it a bit, a decision I would assume for most of these cases needs to be made by the date of the original flight or not when the original flight is canceled.
Yeah, so, you know, the overarching advice is wait as long as possible. It's typically 24 hours before departure, if I can generalize it. Because if they do cancel that flight, then you're entitled to a refund. If they don't, then you're up to voluntary changes. Asia Miles, you're kind of a good news, bad news situation. You can actually use miles instead of paying, you know, it's 12,000 miles or $120 to cancel a ticket. So you can just get refunded 12,000 less miles and keep the $120 if you want. But generalizing it overall, everybody listening, if you're waiting, just wait as long as you can. I would say 24 hours before departure to see if that flight is going to be canceled, because based on what we don't know is going to happen and then how many schedule changes there are, everything going on, you know, high likelihood schedule change or cancellation is going to affect you, and then you get your money back for free. If I answered your question.
Yeah, and then so we continue that example. So I'm holding 2 tickets, the flights are canceled. So I know I definitely have an option to get a refund of my miles and taxes paid. If I want to continue with the trip, so let's say we want to go a year from now, most airline tickets would be 1 year validity from date of issue, and I believe some have extended validity to that. So we booked this trip in March, and if we said we want to travel June 2021, is that possible with Asia Miles? Is that possible with any of the airlines? So we booked March of 20, trip in June, and we don't want to travel for another year. It's a birthday, so the birthday is when it is.
Yeah, I believe. I don't know about Asia Miles, Kathy specifically, but with the domestic big 3, it's 2 years now instead of 1. Mm-hmm. If you choose not to accept the refund, you have 2 years to make the flight. Again, I don't know what Asia Miles did. I ended up having to fork over the 12,000 miles to cancel my big Qatar trip because the day the flight came, and even though I told them I wasn't going to travel because of COVID, to catch a flight in Sydney, they wouldn't accept it, and the waivers hadn't started yet, so I had to fork over the 12,000. I could have kept it for a year, but my calendar's so crazy, and it's 3 and a 5-year-old, I just didn't want to leave it hanging out there. I'd rather have the miles back. So I don't know about Asia Miles specifically, but lots of airlines now are 2 years instead of 1 validity.
No, that's good to hear, and I'll investigate my case and try to make that decision. I was in the same boat in February where we were leaving Hong Kong early because it was bubbling up there, and they just would not budge on the change fee. We had to pay it. They were
there's a few airline hold musics that just make my stomach hurt, and Asia Miles is definitely one of them. The number of times I called to try and not have to pay the 12,000 mile cancellation fee, and they just weren't having it. That was so bummed.
Yeah. Try any kind of persuasion, social engineering. You just hit that one. I think that's general of a lot of the Asian-based programs is customer service is good but not flexible.
Not flexible. No, if there's no sweet talking a Japanese phone agent into anything. The rules are the rules.
And let's close with you mentioned Turkish a bit earlier as being an incredible value, and we meandered different ways, but talk about that incredible value of the program. I think a lot of our European members have been using the program maybe for the generous status benefits, but not necessarily aware of the award potential.
Yeah, just wrote a 3,000 word guide on why we're calling Turkish the hottest loyalty program of the year. City transfer partner, so easy for Americans to get miles and smiles. They've also made tremendous upgrades to their online booking capabilities. You no longer have to email the ticketing office or call them and go through all those shenanigans. They even have a Star Alliance awards search engine online that's pretty good. And the amount of miles it costs to go places is just super cheap. So from anywhere in the U.S. to Hawaii, 7,500 miles one way in economy on United. Lots of availability right now, like I was just talking about. Only 15,000 if you want to go in first class. And again, you can catch it every now and again on United right now to go to Hawaii. Make sure you pick a date that you think the 14-day quarantine is going to be over, because you don't want to mess with that. But then heading off to Europe and their promo awards. So I just had Atlanta to Istanbul, 7879, awesome product. Up in business class, the promo was 33,800 Turkish miles and about $110. And fuel surcharges to fly, transatlantic on that program. They have all kinds of promos going on, really reasonable award charts. You can, tremendous route network that continues to grow, great onboard product and service. Also, the Caribbean and Hawaii are in the same region, so 7,500 miles again to fly from anywhere in the U.S. to the Caribbean. You can get down to Mexico and do some cool things. They allow stopovers, they allow open jaws, and you can all do it online now. And really, those painful days of the past are behind us if you want to do this stuff. So, big fan. Transfers take less than 24 hours. That last transfer I just did, again, for another awesome trip I had that unfortunately had to be canceled in the coronavirus world. So if you're not earning City Thank You points right now with the intention of transferring over to Turkish, I highly encourage you to take a look at that, spend some time getting to know the program as well as City Thank You points.
And quickly, what is your favorite airline to fly with?
Oh, wow. Yeah, what airline am I excited to get on? I would have to say Japan Airlines. It's my favorite. I used to spend my weekends. It was a 45-minute train ride to Haneda and 4,500 Avios. You can go anywhere in Japan on Japan Airlines domestic flights, and I would pick a random Japanese airport I hadn't been to yet and fly there for the weekend. You can get to Haneda 30 minutes before your flight departs. You're through security in 5. They can board a 777 in 15 minutes. That's on a domestic flight that leaves every 30 minutes. So take your pick. And it was just my happy spot, exploring Japan, going to every single Japanese baseball stadium for 4,500 Avios each, and then flying first in business class. I love their business class back to the States when it was time to go home. So if I see a Japan Airlines 777, I'm a happy guy.
Trivia: the only upgrade I've ever paid for on any airline is an Avios award. I upgraded to J class to Okinawa for I don't know, it was 1,000 miles or something.
Yes, and it's such an amazing domestic flying experience. I miss it all the time. Those were great weekends.
And we can't let it drop. The best stadium that you went to in Japan for the experience.
Oh, the Hokkaido Dome, I think, was my favorite. Because of all the things that there was to do up there. Sorry, the Sapporo Dome that there was to do up there in Sapporo. You could go skiing, amazing Hilton resort that when I was there was 25,000 points a night. That was ski in and ski out, and then drive down and catch a baseball game in Sapporo Dome, walk around downtown Sapporo. They had a huge Russian community that was a lot of fun to hang out with, some awesome gardens, some really good food up there, and then head off into nature, just made for just an immersive sports nature beer weekend. That was just tons of fun.
All right. Well, Hokkaido has been high on my list. It's of the 4 main Japanese islands. I've not been to that one, and you've sold me on that. So I'll try to pay it forward on a tip of Japanese baseball spring training. The island of Guam. The resort is what is it called? Leopolis, with 14 baseball diamonds, and it's right in the center of Guam in the hills. So check that out, and I'll wave to you all the way over from Hokkaido.
We used to Guambodia. I spent some time in Guambodia there at the Hyatt Regency Guam. We used to have to go up to the Air Force Base at the north part of the island and work, but I never made it to spring training out there.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Richard.
Anytime, man. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to chat these things.